Hello guys, in this quick Unreal Engine 5 tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to make any object in your game interactable. Let's go ahead and get started. So here I have a completely fresh project. The only thing I've changed was the camera boom. I just offset it to the right a little bit so the player is not in the center. You don't have to do this, I just prefer it. So first thing you need to do for an interaction system is to set up the input mapping. This is basically the keybinds for the game. So locate your input folder, right click, hit input action, and name it whatever you want. I'm going to name mine IA_interaction. IA for input action, so it's easier to find. Then go into the input mapping context and add the input we just created and set up your keybind. It can be any key you want, E, left click, F. I personally will set mine to E. Next, you'll want to open up your character blueprint. Mine is the third person character. Find an empty spot, right click, and type in the name of the input. For me, that was IA_interaction. For example, in how this works, I'll put a print string so whenever I click E in game, it'll print hello. Remember to compile and save before you start the game. Now, when I click E in game, you'll see at the top left it says hello. So now back to your character blueprint. Now we're going to create a function for the line trace. If you don't know what a function is, let me know in the comments and I can do a tutorial in the future explaining it. But for now, create a function and name it line trace. So this is our player and this is the camera. What a line trace does is it takes our camera's rotation and casts a line from the camera all the way to your crosshair in the middle of the screen. There are different forms of traces. You can do a line trace, a sphere trace, there's a capsule trace, and a box trace. They all basically do the same thing, but each one is better for certain things. For example, bullets, it's much better to use a line trace. A line trace means if the player's crosshair is slightly off of the object, it won't interact with it. While sphere trace is a little bit more forgiving, but if you're wanting a more realistic one, I would recommend a line trace. So what a trace does is if any object is on that channel, like for example anything that's visible, which is the default, if any object is visible, it just returns that actor. So it just tells the player, hey, you're looking at a door. Then you can use that data to run code. Like in our system, we're going to use that for interaction. So we're going to drag out of line trace and we're going to type in trace. Here's where you pick which one you want, whichever one you think fits your system the best, but I am going to go sphere trace. Make sure it's by channel. And for the trace channel, what we'll want to do is go over to edit, project settings, and you'll want to go all the way down to collision. And here you see trace channels, and we want to add a new trace channel, and let's just call it interaction. We want the default response to be ignore. So things like our map just don't default block it. We want everything to ignore it unless we want the player to interact with it. Now we can come back to the third person character, and trace channel will be interaction. So for the start, we're going to grab our camera, and then we want to get its world location. That will be the start. And the endpoint, we want to be how long the line is. To do that, we'll get the camera and get its rotation. We'll get its world rotation, and then we want to get its forward vector. This basically means wherever we're facing, it will always get the forward direction. So our trace doesn't go behind the player or to the left, it always faces forward. And then we want to multiply that with how far we want it to go. So what you're going to want to do is right click the bottom part and hit to float single precision. I'm going to go ahead and set mine to a big number like 1500. Depending on how far back your camera is, you'll have to change that. It's all up to you. Next, you'll want to add the start with the end, and that'll be plugged straight into the end. And that's basically so it goes from a straight line from this to that. And for now, we can set it as debug and we can do persistent. So now what you're going to want to do is back out of line trace and go to the event graph. And where we set up the interaction, we want to plug in our line trace. And now you can see a line trace start from the camera all the way to the distance we set. We can set it to be smaller if we want, but the smaller you go, you'll notice it doesn't even reach the player. So depending on how far back your camera is from your player, you'll want to remember to add that into your line trace. I personally think about 1500 is a pretty good one for me. And the next thing we're going to do is, since it's a sphere trace, you want to set the radius. I like mine to be 20, so it's still pretty precise, but it's also a little bit more forgiving if the player, you know, doesn't hit the object directly. Next, what we want to do is we want to break the hit result. This is whatever we hit, and what I'm going to do is click on line trace over here. I'm going to add an output, and in this output I'm going to make it an actor. This will be our hit actor. And then I'll also make another one, and it'll be a boolean, and it's going to be called valid. So we'll make a branch, which, by the way, it's just B, holding down B and left clicking, if you don't know that keybind already. And we want to make it where if this actually hits something, this will return true. So if it's hit something, we want to tell it that this is the actor we hit, and we want to tell it that it's valid. However, if we did not hit anything, we're going to make it where it doesn't set it to hit actor to anything, and we're also going to uncheck that. You come over here, and you make a little branch here, and check to see if it's valid. We can then tell the hit actor things. And to do that, for the interaction system, we are going to go back out, go to wherever you want your blueprints to be, right click, blueprint, and a blueprint interface. And I'm going to call mine BPI player. And if you open this, you can also name it BPI interaction, whichever one you think you'll remember best. I always remember player, so. And here we're going to create a new function called interact. So the way this works is whenever our actor hits something, if we type BPI interact, it's basically like a doorbell. Whenever this code runs, the player is basically ringing the doorbell on this actor, and they can run whatever code they want. It's a more optimized way of telling an actor to run code than hard coding it like open door, for example. Like if there was an event called open door, it's a bit more of a universal way to do that. So you can use this code for anything from picking up objects to opening doors, turning off lights, anything like that. But before we do this, what we actually want to do is we want to check, does object implement interface? And we want to check to see if it has BPI player. If it has this interface implemented, so if this is true, then we want to interact. Right now, if it does implement this interface, then we want to interact. And to show you how this works, I'm going to create a new blueprint. I'm going to make a folder called blueprints. By the way, if you want, you can also color code things by just right-clicking, going to set color, and just making a new color. And I'm going to create a blueprint class, and we're going to call it BP lightswitch. Pretty simple. And this, we're going to make a little cube, and it is going to have a point light in front of it. It's just going to have a simple little point light, and if I drag it out into the world, this is what it looks like. On default, we want this light to be hidden in world, or hidden in game, sorry. And to implement this interface, because right now, if the player goes over here to interact, it's not going to register it's interacting with anything. As you can tell, it goes straight through it. The way you make it interactable is on the cube, you go to collision, and you make a custom one, and you want to make sure. So you'll want to switch it from ignore interaction to block. So now, if you hit it, it'll light up green, but you'll notice it still doesn't do anything. That's because this thing, it doesn't have any event that runs on interact. To do that, you'll want to go to class settings, where it says implemented interface, hit add, and type BPI player. Interaction probably would have been a smarter name. And as you can tell on the left, this thing appeared. This is basically the doorbell. So whenever the player's line trace hits it, it will trigger this code right here. So for this code, let's do a boolean over here called light on, and on default it's going to be full, so we're going to check to see if light is on. If it is on false, then we're going to take this point light, set hidden in game to unchecked, and then if it is on, then we're going to check it, so now it's hidden. And we can do a little print string light off, then another print string light on. Remember to set the boolean we made to false, and then over here we'll set it to true. And now if we go in game and we hit E, you'll notice now the light turns on and off when we click E. And there we go, that's your simple line trace tutorial. It's flexible enough for you to expand upon. Thank you so much for watching my very first tutorial video, and if you like this video, feel free to leave a comment down below on what you'd like to see next, and hit that subscribe button so you get notified when I post another tutorial.